Yo, what's up, you guys? It's Jose from Patrick and Friends Music Company. I am your bass instructor. If we met before, or if you've seen me before, what's up? And if you don't, or if you haven't, what's up? Nice to meet you. Recap from the previous lessons, we've talked about the basics of the bass, positions, we've talked about some scales, F, G, D major. And today, I just kind of really want to talk further about scales, and this time, start working in a way that is going to help you theoretically as well. And that is using the circle of fifths to walk through the scales, through all the scales, meaning all 12 scales. Now, we're not going to tackle all 12 scales within one video, or maybe not even within 2 videos, because I really want to break it down to where there's no unanswered questions about the scales and how to approach them within the first part of the bass. We're not going to get down here yet. We're going to really just focus on the basic fingerings within these positions in this first introduction of the 12 major scales. Let's jump into it. We've gone through F major, we've gone through G major, we've gone through D major. And that basically works from half position up down to the third position, with D being the highest note. So in these, we're going to start with these scales. We're going to start with C major. From C major, using the circle of fifths, much like your strings that are spread out in fifths, we're going to go through the circle of fifths and learn the scales like that. The first scale is going to be C. If you look at a clock, C is going to be the 12 o'clock. It's like the middle, right? It's the beginning of life, if you want to put it that way. But obviously it's not. That's just a corny joke. But C major. Walk it back down. That is your C major scale. Now you notice for C major, I'm starting with my middle finger in second position. So, when we talked about G major, we talked about you start with that middle finger on the G, starting on second position. So really, you're playing in first position of the bass, with your index finger being on F sharp. Obviously, F sharp for this case for C major is not needed. So we start with our middle finger on C, much like if you're doing G major. But for C major, you're going to start with the middle finger on C, using your first position. Then you walk it down. You got C, whole step up, you have D. You can use your open string because it is going to be the most in tune, and it's also going to ring out really beautiful with an instrument. Like I said in the first couple of lessons, open strings resonate beautifully within the bass. So whenever you can, use them. So C, you're going to go middle finger, open string for D. You're going to use your index finger on half step, or the half position of the bass on the D string, so you have E. Then you're going to have middle finger on F, that is the fourth. Then you're going to go to open G, the fifth. Index finger for A and half position, you got A. Then you're going to have your pinky for the B, the 7. And then, instead of using your first finger to hit the C, which is going to put you in third position, you're simply going to slide up a half step using your pinky, and you slide up to that C. So here's B, and then you just slide up a half step. And that is your C major scale. Now, you might ask, why shift with your pinky to the C? It's just to make it easy, and it's an easier movement. Instead of having to shift with your index finger or with your middle finger to hit the C, because the C is going to be the last note that we're hitting within this scale, the easiest thing is to just slide down a half position. If you were to do a 2 octave, then we can talk about shifting down with the index finger to further get down the fingerboard to hit a 2 octave C major scale. But that's in future lessons. For now, we're going to focus on that shift with the pinky from the B to the C. All right, so you got C, walk it back down. And that is your C major scale. Again, you practice that with the metronome slowly. Now, we're going to talk about a little bit of the G scale, the G major scale. We've already gone through it before, so we're just going to do a quick touch up on it so you can see how it relates to C major. So it's just a fifth away. What you're doing is adding a sharp. If you're looking at it on paper, from C you have no sharps, you have no flats. It is all natural. Everything's natural. Everything is going to be it's the white keys on the piano. So everything's natural. There are no sharps, there are no flats. When you go up that fifth to play a G major scale, all the notes remain the same except for the F. The F now becomes an F sharp. So instead of playing all your notes natural, now you're playing every note natural except for the F sharp. And that is the one sharp that gets added. So when you walk it down, as we've already done before, you got G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. And that is your G major scale. So you go up another fifth from that, and now you have D. You got your D major scale, which we just went over the previous lesson. So if you don't know your D major scale, I broke that down a little bit more in the previous lesson. So you definitely want to go check that out. So now D major. So we added one sharp going from C to G. So in this case, all we're adding is another sharp. In this case, the sharp that we're adding is the C sharp. So now you have two sharps. You have F sharp and you have C sharp. And that constructs the D major scale. And that is your D major scale. Again, you're adding those two sharps, the F sharp and the C sharp. Now, if you think ahead, you start seeing a pattern. So every time we go up a fifth, every time we go up to the next scale within the circle of fifths, you're adding a sharp. As long as you're moving up in fifths. So we jump from D. Now we're gonna go up a fifth to A. So that is your A major scale. Now, we added an F sharp and we've added a C sharp. So if those are jumping in fifths, after C sharp, what's the next fifth up from C sharp? And that is the new sharp that we're adding to this next scale, the A major scale. In this case, it's the G. So now we have C sharp, or we have F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp now. Notice that the sharp that we're adding is always the seventh note of that scale that we're playing. When we added it to G major, it was the F sharp. That's the seventh. When we added the sharp to D major, it was C sharp, which is the seventh of D major. And now when we're adding it to the A major, we're adding the seventh, which is G sharp. So there's a pattern with that. So now, as you go up through the scales, you kind of already know the fingerboard a little bit within the first three positions, and using your half steps that we kind of went through within the first couple of lessons, which is you can start utilizing that to really learn these scales. They're all built upon the same formula. You got whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. So if you guys remember in the previous lessons, we talked about half steps and whole steps. Now, using that knowledge, we're going to go through the component of a major scale, which I've talked about a little bit, but I just kind of want to reiterate it a little bit more using the A major scale. So you have whole step from A to B. There's a whole step between B to C sharp. And then C sharp to D is your first half step. Then D to E is a whole step. And then E to F sharp is a whole step. And F sharp to G sharp is a whole step. And then here's the last half step from G sharp to A. So the formula is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That is your major scale formula. Regarding on any note that you start on, that is going to be a component to formulate a major scale. Using that information and the stuff that we learned using your positions, you can start figuring out how these notes how these scales are built, and it'll further unlock the fingerboard for you. So that was A major. So you move up a fifth, now you're at E major. Using that same formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, you get E major. You start on E. And that is your E major scale. And notice the same fingerings, the same positions that I'm using throughout these other scales that we've gone over. It's the same application throughout these notes. And just one last thing before I leave you is anytime you get to this, before you hit the beginning of the third position, if you know you can play an open string, it's okay to use open strings. So here there's a half step that I could play, but instead of shifting down, I'm just gonna use an open string. It's in tune, it's easier to play, and you really get a nice tone out of it. And it helps you stay in tune within the bass. Once you really solidify your positions, then we can start working on other stuff. But we have to get fundamentals. Fundamentals are important to your growth as really in anything that you do in life. It's, make sure you have your fundamentals down. With that being said, I leave you with that. I haven't gone over all the scales, but if you get ahead of E major and you want to push yourself a little extra, which I definitely highly recommend because that's how we grow, is take it up, do the math. You jump up another fifth and you continue the equation, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and you'll start getting through that. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.